Zoning Appeals, as it is our first meeting of the new year. Happy New Year to everyone. Before we get started, a few housekeeping matters. First, if you have a cell phone or a pager, anything that makes any kind of an audible electronic sound, anything that plays a chime, anything that beeps or what have you, we ask at a minimum that you please turn that to a vibrate only, if not off position. The reason for that is simple. You'll note that there are a number of microphones arrayed around us up here, and those microphones are all very sensitive. So not only for the purpose of amplification, but also for the purpose of recording these proceedings. Additionally, those of you who are sitting forward of the wall, if you turn around and look behind you, you'll see that there are 3 video cameras mounted on the wall behind you and 2 video cameras mounted on the wall behind us. These proceedings are being recorded for broadcast on the city's cable access channel, Charm TV. I think maybe we come on somewhere after Wayne's World. So anything ringing or playing a tune as such in the audience generally disrupts the proceedings, but also interrupts the recording of these proceedings. Similarly, if you find that you need to have a conversation, we ask that you please take that conversation out the double door to your rear for the same reason. The process for today is that we will be voting at the end of the day. You're certainly more than welcome to stick around and enjoy a civics lesson if you so choose. But if you've got other plans for this otherwise splendid midwinter afternoon, that's understandable, and you can call into the zoning board office and find out how we ruled, hence not having to stick around. If you take out pen and paper, I can give you the number for the zoning board office. I'll read this number a couple of times. The number is 410-396-4301. Again, that's 410-396-4301. You will, of course, have to wait until you receive the formal written outcome of your case. That should be forthcoming in about 3 to 4 weeks before you'll be able to pull your permits. We ask that you not build in the city of Baltimore without first obtaining proper permits. If you have not already done so, if you're here in opposition to any case today, we ask that you sign in on our sign-in sheet, being held up over there by Mr. French. The reason for the sign-in sheet is so that we know who needs to receive those aforementioned written notices I just talked about. We also generally like to keep track of which cases have opposition. Additionally, if your case is postponed, we need to let you know when your case is going to be going forward. If you are the appellant, when the cases are called, you'll approach and the appellant will stand to my left or your right. The opposition, if any, will stand to my right or your left. Once everyone is up here, we'll get you sworn in by our court reporter, and then we will go on and hear the case. First hearing from the appellant, who will be given the opportunity to present their side of things, tell us what the issues in the case are, present any witnesses that they have, submit any materials, and generally respond to any questioning from the board. Once they are done with their presentation, we'll turn next to the opposition, who will be given the opportunity to present their side of things. At the conclusion of the opposition's presentation, we'll turn back to the appellant, who will be given the opportunity to respond to any points addressed by their opposition and to offer a closing statement. We won't be going back and forth, unnecessarily drawing out the proceedings. We will generally call the cases in the order in which they appear on the docket after we first dispense with some preliminary matters. First, we have a posting issue. 2014-548, 1203 Durst Street, Charles George. Okay. Mr. George, you can come up, by the way. The information we have on this is that the sign neglected to refer to the addition of the new third floor.
Well, that's true. what we did was follow the instructions that we got from the zoning. We put exactly up there what was written, which is what we've always done.
Okay. I think you got some bad advice here. Because the issue,
Excuse me, that's not advice, that's instruction. They tell you to do exactly what you said, they say.
okay, well, that was incorrect. Because there's a third floor addition that's also associated with this, there has to be notice of that. There certainly, it certainly is reflected in the plans in the file that we have, but there's no reference to it on the sign that was posted. So that's going to be the issue that you're dealing with.
Well, I have to say, respectfully, that it was the city's fault, not our fault.
That may be
The
so.
city told us.
Sir, that may be so,
Well, it is so,
but
it is so. So why should we be penalized for that? I mean, now we have to wait another 60 days, is that what you're saying we have to do?
60 days, no. The
Yes.
sign needs to be up for 3 weeks before the hearing.
Yes, but they don't reschedule you for 60 days.
We can reschedule you right here, sir. I can give you the number for Mr. Tanner, the executive director of the zoning board. He's sitting down at the end of the dais there. Once you have your sign up, it has to be up for 3 weeks before the next hearing date. I think that we have, do we have a sense of what we look like? This would be our, not our next hearing, but the one after that?
Well, we could put it on for the next hearing, February 10th.
Yes.
So that it would,
Well, I would appreciate that if they could move it up.
what happened was the application that was submitted to the zoning administrator's office.
Well, yes, it did. I have the application right here. No, I have the application right here. You see?
There were two applications filed, the one you have and this one that gets sent to us. The one that came to us from the zoning administrator did not mention it to us. So that's
the application
I've seen that.
No, but it could change the fact that we were not responsible.
Clarify where the issue came from.
Yeah, the issue isn't assignment of blame. The issue is that the public's entitled to notice. If we heard your case today, and if you had any kind of approval, an aggrieved member of the public could then attack your permit for having insufficient description and notification of what the subject of the hearing was, and thereby delaying your project even further.
Were there any objections to the sign as posted?
But there weren't any public notice of the third floor.
That's it. Just simply repost the sign with the description of the third floor addition.
Okay.
As Mr. Tanner indicated, we can put you on for the February the 10th docket, and then you'll go forward at that
Well,
time.
you know, it would be nice to hear an apology from the city. You know, if we make a mistake, we're penalized sometimes with monetarily and delays and everything. So the city made this mistake. Nobody here is willing to say that that was the problem.
The zoning administrator's office, this gets a little bit down in the weeds as far as organizational minutia, but the zoning administrator's office is actually separate from the zoning board. So I'm sure if you would like to go and speak to a supervisor there, they can probably address your concern. I'm certainly sorry that you have had your hearing delayed, but the fact of the matter is that, as I said, with the notice that was provided on the sign, that insufficiently described what the purpose of the hearing was, and you further benefit from having this matter cleared up now as opposed to waiting, starting your work, and then having an objection raised by community members, and then having your permit withdrawn because there is an objection over the notice. It actually, in the long run, protects you. But as we do have a room full of people, we have to cut this off now.
Okay, allow me to make one more statement. Either the owner, who's my client, has to pay additional fees for this, or I don't charge for my fees. So there are monetary consequences too. People don't come in here for free. So that's all.
Thank you. All right. Next up are the cases on our consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of cases where the zoning board staff has already reviewed these files and determined that we have enough information to approve these appeals. We'll call all of the consent cases together as a group. Actually, one thing that I wanted to address before we get to the consent agenda. We have a few postponements today. The following cases have been postponed or withdrawn and will not be heard today. So if you're here on any of these cases, so long as you're signed in, we'll let you know when these cases will be going forward, at least as to the postponed matters. The matters which have been withdrawn, obviously, will not be going forward at all. 2014-427, 305 East 25th Street is postponed. 2014-538, rear of 2213 through 15 East Pratt Street. Mr. Lauer, did you want to put anything on the record?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Fred Lauer representing Todd Vaughn, the applicant, and we've heard some issues today from some community members, and we'd like to take some time and talk to them about it and see if we can work some things out. So we'd ask for a postponement.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Lauer. 2014-538, rear of 2213 through 15 East Pratt Street, Todd Vaughn is postponed. 2014-543, 919 West Berry Street and 758 Iceland Street, AB Associates, care of Nate Prettle. That matter has also been postponed. 2014-545, 737 Carroll Street, Brent Fuller. That case has been postponed. 2014-551, 3446 Chestnut Avenue has been postponed until January 27th, 2015 at 3 p.m. And those are all of our postponements. Well, there's one more. 2014-557, 1625 Thames Street is postponed to February 10th, 2015 at 1 p.m. Next up are the cases on our consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of cases where the zoning board staff has already reviewed these files and determined that that there is sufficient information to approve these appeals. We'll call all of the consent cases together as a group. Once everyone is up here, we'll get you sworn in, and we'll then take any additional information that you'd like to have added to the record at that time. If you can try to stay in the order in which you're called, that'll let things run a little bit more smoothly. 2014-544, 3311 Toon Street, Gina Campbell. Okay. 2014-546, 7211 Park Heights Avenue, Lisa Junker. 2014-547, 310 East Fort Avenue, Mike Coster. 2014-553, 1500 Whetstone Way, Verizon Wireless, care of Alexandra Bull. 2014-556, 306 South Exeter Street, Julie Tice. 2014-558, 624 Denison Street, Black Lotus Development, Inc., care of Michael Brown. 2014-559, 4212 Groveland Avenue, Cecilia Wright Brown. 2014-560, 3305 Mueller Street, AB Associates, care of Nate Prettle. And finally, 2014-564, 1100 through 34 East Belvedere Avenue, Robert Bathurst.
raise their right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. First up, 2014-546, 7211 Park Heights Avenue, Lisa Junker. Afternoon, Ms. Junker. We have this as an application to subdivide the existing lot into 3 lots, retain the 5-story multiple-family detached mixed-use dwelling, housing 24 dwelling units and offices on 1 lot, and create 2 unimproved lots. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Thank you. Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. The department recommends approval, subject to the condition that the proposed subdivision of the property receives approval by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Junker, is that condition acceptable to your client?
Yes.
All right. Was there anything further you'd like to add to the record? All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, you've determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, 2014-547, 310 East Ford Avenue, Mike Coster.
Yes.
Afternoon, Mr. Coster. We have this as an application to construct 2nd and 3rd floor rear decks and a rooftop deck at the premises. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
And Mr. Coster, anything you'd like to have added to the record at this time?
No, sir.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we've determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, 2014-553, 1500 Whetstone Way, Verizon Wireless, care of Alexandra Bull.
Hi.
Afternoon, Ms. Bull. We have this as an application to install a rooftop telecommunications facility consisting of 15 antennas with equipment onto a mixed-use building with residential and commercial uses. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. French for the planning department.
Thank you. Planning Department recommends approval of this appeal, subject to these conditions. Where not otherwise concealed by or integrated with architectural features of the existing building, the antennas and related equipment must be painted to match the building to ensure they are visually unobtrusive. And the panel antennas and related equipment will remain mounted as illustrated, not to exceed 24 inches from the surface of the facade to the face of the antenna, with cable runs installed through the parapet, and with no exposed cable runs expressed on the exterior of the building, as in the plans and elevations submitted to and approved by planning. And the applicant will adequately mitigate any adverse effect as specified in the report of the Historical and Architectural Preservation Division of the Department of Planning in accordance with that report's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Bull, are these conditions acceptable to your client? Okay. Anything further you'd like to have added to the record? All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we've determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. 2014-556, 306 South Exeter Street, Julie Tice.
Hello.
Afternoon, Ms. Tice. We have this as an application to construct 1st and 3rd floor rear additions with a 2nd floor rear deck. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
The Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tice, anything further you'd like to have added to the record?
No.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 2014-558, 624 Dennison Street, Black Lotus Development Incorporated, care of Michael Brown.
Yes.
Afternoon, Mr. Brown. We have this as an application to install a parking pad in the rear yard. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Mr. French, anything as to this appeal?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, anything further you would like to have added to the record?
No, no.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. 2014-559, 4212 Groveland Avenue, Cecilia Wright Brown.
Yes.
Afternoon, Ms. Wright Brown. We have this application to construct a 1st-story, 3-car detached garage in the rear yard. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything as to this appeal from the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Brown, anything further you'd like to have added to the record?
No.
Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we determined there was sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, 2014-560, 3305 Mueller Street, AB Associates, care of Nate Prettle. Afternoon, Mr. Prettle. We have this as an application to construct a 2-story rear addition with 1st floor rear deck. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
The Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Predel, anything further you'd like to have added to
Yes,
the record?
briefly. You should mention I have Greg Strauss with me, the property owner. Also have a letter of support from the Canton Community Association. I wanted to clarify that this is indeed a two-story rear addition, but also includes a basement addition. That's reflected on the plans and reflected in all our meetings with the community as well.
Okay. Anything further?
No.
All right, the zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, for this next one, I will let Mr. Bonaventure handle this, as I know one of the parties associated with this appeal.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Caroline Hecker and Justin Williams of Rosenberg Martin Greenberg on behalf of the applicant.
And this is number
2014-564.
564, 1100 to 1134 East Belvedere Avenue, to construct a one-story detached leasing office with laundry within existing multiple-family detached dwelling complex.
That's correct.
We've reviewed your submissions, and zoning staff has sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you. I would just like to add this to supplement the record.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
No objection.
Mr. French?
Anything further?
Mr. French may have something to add.
I came into this
That's
very
all right.
late in the process.
No problem. No, for the record, the Planning Department has no objection to this appeal. The planning staff has been working with the applicant on the design and the location of this proposed facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further from us?
Nothing further.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck. We kind of put you on the spot there.
I thought you were going to do like other cases.
All right, the next cases, the next group of cases which we'll address will include cases for which opposition is signed in. Frequently we found that opposition is the result of either a miscommunication or a lack of communication between the parties, and it frequently can be useful to offer the parties an opportunity to have a dialogue to see if they can resolve their differences between them. Obviously, if two sides to an issue approach the board and ask the board to resolve the dispute, someone is bound to go away from that encounter unhappy, and this is your opportunity to avoid that. When I call off the cases for which opposition is signed in, you can just stand where you are and let us know. We'll ask you if there's been any dialogue between the parties, or if the parties desire to speak with one another. You're certainly not required to take up that offer to speak with one another, but we certainly do recommend and appreciate it. The one remaining case where we have opposition that has signed in is 2014-552, 4621 Mary Avenue, Chanel Braxton. Okay, and who signed in opposition to that case? Okay, and have you folks had an opportunity to speak?
We have.
Yes? Any desire to have a continued dialogue, see if you can get it resolved?
I mean, we've talked, I'm assuming they still have opposition. They still have opposition.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any prospect for a resolution? Okay. Have a seat. We'll call you in turn. All right. First case, 2014-524, 3400 Chestnut Avenue, Kathy Kent Schott. Afternoon. Ms. Schott, we have this in application to use the first floor of the premises as a cafe with outdoor table service as accessory to the restaurant use. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, if you can raise your hand to be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
May I hand out packets?
Sure. While you're doing that, do we have staff reports?
Yes, first we have a letter from the Hampton Community Council. They indicate that they do not believe there will be any negative impact related to this use. Therefore, they support the conditional use request to use the premises, use the first floor of the premises as a cafe with outdoor table service. You also have planning's report.
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed the application and the attachment to it, which we refer to as the sidewalk site plan. and believes it to be acceptable. The department recommends that approval of this appeal, if granted, be subject to these conditions, in addition to any other conditions the board may establish. First, a minimum of 6 feet of the sidewalk must remain clear and unobstructed for pedestrian use. Second, the capacity of the outdoor seating areas will be not more than 7 tables and 14 patrons. Third, the tables will be limited to those that can seat 2 patrons and are to be kept against the wall of the building. Fourth, there will be no outdoor bar. Fifth, there will be no outdoor music, jukebox, or other form of entertainment. And sixth, all patrons must be seated for dining and served by waitstaff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. And Ms. Schott, are those conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you tell us what it is you're proposing here?
Great. My name is Kathy, and my partner Ryan and I submit Play Cafe for conditional use for a cafe with accessory outdoor table service. Play Cafe Baltimore is a coffee house and cafe for the Hamden neighborhood, catering to families with a cozy atmosphere and play area. In the attachments that we previously provided was a layout of the interior and exterior of the space. This includes seating for 30 inside with an additional 14 outdoor seats. Approximately 500 square feet of the 1,200 square foot space will be comprised of a play area. This cafe will serve coffee, tea, smoothies, breakfast, lunch, and healthy snacks for adults and kids. Our hours of operation will be 7 to 5 during the week and 7 to 3 on the weekends, and we will be closed on Tuesdays. In a neighborhood that's filled with young families, we think a truly kid-friendly place is needed. We've worked closely with the community on this endeavor and have neighborhood support and excitement. We provided in evidence the letter of support from the Hamden Community Council and also the letter of support from the Hamden Village Merchants Association. And then in addition, we distributed flyers to our neighbors, which are 100 yards of all sides of 3400 Chestnut Avenue, and are enclosing an email of support from them as well as a Facebook posting from a local mommies group. We understand that parking is a concern in the area, and this cafe is being created for the neighborhood by the neighborhood. Walking customers far outweigh driving customers, and also our hours of operation are during the day when there are many more parking spaces in the neighborhood, so we don't pose a parking problem.
Okay, and there's no available space on the lot for parking?
No.
There's no off-street parking that comes with it that may be off-site somewhere else?
No.
Okay. How many employees do you anticipate you'll have?
2.
And one thing I noticed from your drawing is that you've got this little note here. It says seating for 50 inside plus additional 20 outside. If I understand the drawing, you're only offering a seating for 14 outside?
Right. That's an old iteration.
All right. I figured that, just wanted to.
Yeah, we're doing seating for 30 inside and then 14 outside per the planning department.
Okay. All right. Were there any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, 2014-542, 1026 Olive Street, AB Associates, care of Nate Prettle. Afternoon again, Mr. Prettle.
Good afternoon.
We have this as an application to construct a new 4-story, single-family detached dwelling with rooftop deck and lower-level front accessed garage. Is that correct?
Well, the plans have changed a little bit since that application, which I can go over.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that. You've already been sworn, so we can turn to staff reports.
Okay. This letter is from the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association, signed by Rich Poland. He writes, I have been asked to stand in on behalf of the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association regarding the above referenced matter. To that end, I have been in contact with the consultant for the applicant in an effort to express our concerns and possibility to find common grounds for the proposed development of the lot. In concern with 4 members of the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association,
Board of Directors, the chairman of the Preservation Committee, and the chairman of the Parking Committee, we met with the applicant's consultants. A point of discussion was that the project represented a speculative venture, not a homeowner who was interested in becoming a neighbor. The concerns we expressed upon reviewing the first set of plans are as follows. There was no zoning site plan attached. The drawings do not appear to be prepared by a licensed professional. R8 has a 35-foot height restriction. The plan submitted illustrates a 4-story single-family residence. The bedroom fire escape openings are within 3.5 feet of the rear property line, an area that is landlocked without emergency access. Turning radius for entering the parking space off Olive Street does not seem feasible. A legitimate space would be held back clear 1 foot first floor walls 3 feet from the front of the property line. Allowing exterior wall construction, stair width and interior wall thickness, the parking space is not usable. Perhaps move the stairs. The site does not comply with the minimum width for a dwelling at 16 feet. The lot area coverage exceeds 60%. A 25-foot rear yard is required. 3'6" seems to be proposed. Building separation walls should be concrete since the property owner cannot control maintenance across the property line. This is an across-the-board recommendation for row house conditions based on our experience with expected future additions and rooftop decks. The rooftop deck should be located at the rear of the property with no pop-up access from a flush hatch. The deed should reflect opting out of the residential parking area number 9 program, including visitors' passes. The council person is suggesting he can help with this. The outcome of the BMZA hearing for this project has parking ramifications for Area 9. It removes 2 at-grade spaces on the open lot and creates a residence with 1 off-street parking space. Since the RPP allows for as many as 4 decals and 1 visitor pass per residence, this is a net reduction to the available parking spaces, creating a potential deficit of 6 spaces. For the record, there appear to be 787 dedicated available spaces on street parking. There were 1,355 decals plus 876 visitor passes plus 280 church passes issued in 2014. This represents an Area 9 dedicated parking deficit of 1,724 spaces as it is. The appeal in this case should not be granted due to neighborhood opposition, since our board adopted the parking initiative in 2007 to at least maintain or reduce the ratio of required 9 spaces to available Area 9 spaces. This is a serious quality of life issue for all of us living, working, and shopping in the Federal Hill area. While the appellant's consultant may have argued to diminish the severity of the several requested variances, this project seems to have more than one BMZA obstacle requiring special consideration that in combination should be recognized as insurmountable, not arguable. While there may be several design issues for which we could and should be flexible, there is still one non-starter issue for the association. With 16 parcels on South Hanover Street and South Charles backing onto Olive Street, we face a negative impact or a parking deficit of 108 spaces as speculative development continues to move into the residential community. Just the same, even with questionable design, a cross easement, a public works agreement by the developer for speculative development, the remaining sticking point of the parking matter must be recognized by the zoning board. Towards an acceptable compromise between the association and the developer. That is, the association endorses 1026 Oliver Street project subject to the most recent modifications to the plans and to the MOU of understanding that will be drafted and executed with the developer. The MOU shall tie any and all homeowners to one excluded off-street parking space provided for only one Area 9 parking decal and no visitor passes. We believe that this endorsement for the development project reflects a willingness on the part of the neighborhood association to work toward improving a quality of life for the residents. Does planning have a report?
Thank you. Planning Department received this application and noted that this is a lot represented on the plat map for this particular block, and therefore it could be considered a lot of record. However, the plat map also does indicate the lot was recorded in 1978, so in other words, after 1971, when the zoning code took effect. That said, the Planning Department's principal concern is that any dwelling, if it's approved, comply with the terms and conditions of the Sharp Leadenhall Urban Renewal Plan, this property being located in that particular urban renewal area. That plan does require that new construction have a brick face or facade and fiber cement board at a minimum, or masonry units on the other walls of the property. The department therefore recommends that approval of this appeal, if it is granted, be subject to the condition that the final design and construction of the dwelling structure comply with the requirements and standards of the Sharp Leadenhall Urban Renewal Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, first, Mr. Prettle, the conditions stated by the Planning Department acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Now, you said that there were some changes.
Sure. And I have 2 copies of the revised plans, which you do not yet have in your file. Sorry, I don't have
Okay.
more. Some of these last changes were negotiated up to about half an hour before we came over here for the hearings. That's the reason I maybe don't have more than, and it's, if you want to pick your way through that letter from the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association, I know there's a lot in there. The point at the end is that we came to an agreement where they are supporting this project on a couple primary conditions. Maybe I should explain the project first. So we have a lot here at 1026 Olive Street, which is an alley street in Federal Hill. The frontage of most properties on Olive Street front on Hanover Street. This one here is only fronting on Olive. Our proposal originally was for a 4-story building with a rooftop deck and a front-loading garage. After our negotiations with the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association, that's been reduced to a 3-story building without any sort of pop-up or roof access structure. We still have a roof deck, which remains under 35 feet. However, this is going to be accessed by, it's known as an interior staircase, so there's no access structure whatsoever. And the other big sticking point for the neighborhood was that we limit the number of residential parking permit decals that we can receive to 1. And we're happy to do that. We don't have an MOU with the community association as of yet, as again, this was within about the past half an hour, but that's something we are committed to do and we can put on record for this zoning hearing today. I should mention that we are seeking a couple variances from this board. One for maximum lot coverage, which is again 60%, we're seeking 92%, and for the required rear yard, we're proposing to build within 3.5 feet of the rear property line. I believe this proposal meets the uniqueness and hardship standards, but property is unique due to both its size and its orientation on Olive Street. It's surrounded almost entirely by lots that are, its primary frontage is on Hanover Street, and the lots up to, I believe, 90 feet in length. Here we have a 45-foot long lot. It's actually the 6 adjacent properties to this are all fronting on Hanover Street. This is essentially landlocked, other than Olive Street, by properties that front on Hanover Street, both to the rear and to either side. And the hardship has to do with these, the narrow length of the property. You know, if we were to build to the city zoning code, it would leave us with a building of roughly 20 feet long, which is not feasible in today's environment. So. And also, the home that we're proposing is in character with all of the other houses, both in the immediate area as well as the general neighborhood, both in scale, size, massing, length. And I would just leave myself open to any questions this board might have.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ah, here it is. Next case is 2014-549, 1119 Bayard Street, Angela Jeffries. Afternoon, Ms. Jeffries. We have this as an application to use the first floor of the premises as a 26-child daycare center, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You can come a little bit closer and raise your hand and be sworn, please. Sir, are you here on this case? Okay, are you in opposition, support?
I am in opposition.
Okay, I didn't have opposition signed in on this. Is there, have you two spoken before about this?
No.
What's the first one?
Okay, have you two spoken at all?
No, it's not.
Okay, would you like to take a moment and try to
Sure.
see what the issues are and see if you can, okay, just let us know when you're ready to proceed. Next case, 2014-552, 4621 Mary Avenue, Chanel Braxton.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Braxton, we have this as an application to use the premises as a 40-child daycare center, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, if all those giving testimony can raise their hands and be sworn, please.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right, do we have staff reports?
Yes. First, we have received 5 letters in opposition from residents on Mary Avenue and the property next door at 4623 Mary Avenue. They write that the house, as it is too small for the existing daycare center. The center is particularly loud for the nearby residents and is disruptive to the neighborhood. Children are allowed to play outdoors unsupervised, throwing rocks, balls, and trash. Residents' driveways and on-street parking is blocked by pickup and drop-off, including frequent double parking on the one-way street for what is an 8-child family daycare home. Rather than expand, they would prefer to see the daycare center closed. They have spoken with the operator and have called the police, but to no avail. The major inconveniences caused by the center would become impossible if the center is allowed to expand to 40 children in a residential area. There are also allegations of several daycare regulations currently not being complied with. Prior to this summary, or after the summary, we received another letter from a resident on Hazelwood Avenue. They write that Mary Avenue is impassable and dangerous. I am forced to make illegal turns onto the one-way of Mary to get to my home. Fortunately, I am on the end of and the maneuver is quick. I have, however, seen other neighbors who live further down Mary take a chance and zoom up the one-way street, knowing Mary is blocked by pickup and drop-off activity of the daycare. Additionally, there is a danger of small children darting out into the road and inattentive young parents more engaged with their smartphones, and that I have seen this regularly. We have a letter from Harbell Community Association indicating that the current residents and the 8-child family daycare home staff utilizes all of the available on-street parking on the block, that expanding the daycare center to 40 children would exceed the available parking and lead to gridlock as parents drop off their children in the roadway. We also have received 8 letters of support, 3 letters from residents on Arizona Avenue, Sidell Avenue, and next door at 4619 Mary Avenue. They write that the operator has become a part of the neighborhood by maintaining their property and assisting neighbor seniors with snow removal, that they have efficiently managed their parking issues with small and effective warning signs, and that these writers have not witnessed any pickup or drop-off problems. We have 5 letters from clients in praise of the daycare program and a petition with 11 signatures in support of the expanded daycare center. And we have planning's report.
Thank you. Planning Department received this application and studied both the property and the issues about Mary Avenue itself. Noted that Mary is in fact a narrow street, There is parking allowed on each side of it, but there is a single lane passing through between that parking for cars passing on towards Hazelwood Avenue. The amount of parking required for the daycare center is 1 space per 2 per 2 staff members. This number of children would suggest a staffing of up to 6 people, depending upon the ages of the children and the requirements of the child care laws. Therefore, we note that this property is 50 feet wide. It could provide 5 parking spaces for staff in the rear of the property. There is, in fact, I think, a 2-car garage at the moment on the alley back there. There is a shed also in the back, which appears to be a more recent addition and probably could be moved in order to provide the 3 parking spaces in addition to the 2 that are in the garage. So the department believes there is a solution to the question of the staff parking. That the staff, if the applicant was to provide staff parking in the rear of the property, would no longer need to park on Mary Avenue, and then there would be less conflict with the neighborhood. There is, however, not a suitable location for drop-off or pickup of children on site, and therefore the department believes that the applicant needs to work with the Parking Authority of Baltimore City to see if it's possible to arrange a passenger loading zone in front of this property, specifically to provide a place for people to pull over on a regular basis to drop off or pick up their children. The department therefore recommends that approval of this appeal, if granted, be subject to the conditions that the applicant work with the Parking Authority of Baltimore City to determine if a passenger loading zone should be established in front of this property, and that the applicant provide parking for staff in the rear of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, Ms. Braxton, are the conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
I also have 3 additional letters here.
Okay.
They are
I'll take
only
those.
1 copies.
All right, Chief, which one is these? Why don't you tell us about what you are proposing here, and I guess some of the concern as
Yes.
we heard it from the staff reports, where I guess they revolve around parking and also control of the children. So if you could, in your discussion, include sort of a description of the property, their fencing, how are the
Yes.
children's day is structured, and then, well, I think that probably some of the suggestions offered the planning department will address the other concerns
Okay.
about parking and pickup and stuff like that. But
For the record, my name is Chanel Braxton. I'm the owner of Brilliant Braxton's Daycare. We currently provide services to children in a family daycare setting. I've lived in that property for 7 years, and we've done daycare there for almost 5 years. There have been some concerns with my next-door neighbor who's here today, but let me just tell you a little bit about the program. Basically, Brilliant Braxton's Daycare, again, has been there for 5 years. We provided services to children, both school age and from infant to school age, and we ensure that there's a schedule followed. I have even gone so far as to hire an additional staff, which is not required, to offer support, because I do transportation as well. So,
it's a home daycare?
it is.
currently?
It is. Childcare has been out. They perform random visits, and they don't tell you when they're coming. The neighbor has called, and they come out randomly anyway, and each time there's been no deficiency found. The children are cared for properly. They're fed meals. We have fun. They learn a lot, and that's indicated by a lot of the letters of support that we received. The issue with the next-door neighbor and what she brought up in terms of the yard had to do with, she mentioned, we talked a little bit before the hearing about her dog and being in the yard, and she claimed that the children, the school-age children, antagonized the dog. I thought I addressed the issue. I found out today from them after I hung the zoning sign that apparently they felt that it was not resolved. But prior to that, I get along with all the neighbors pretty much get along with me. I've never heard of any major issues concerning the daycare up until the time I hung the zoning sign. And we've been there for almost 5 years. I try to be as cordial as I can in the neighborhood, keep everything clean. There's never, ever an issue of, a dirty yard, the grass not cut, the kids not being cared for. So up until, again, the zoning sign was hung, I didn't realize that there was such a major issue with the one neighbor. The neighbor on the other side is in total support. She wrote a letter to say so, as is some of the other neighbors on the same block. So we provide services to children in the community. So we're not proposing to open a bar or a cut rate or, something else. We're proposing to provide a service to people in the community, and it's obviously a service they need for me to be requesting expansion. Again, never ever had an issue with childcare at all, and they come out constantly. They don't tell you when they're coming. They show up. The food program is also out often. Fire and health come out annually to inspect the property. So there's never been a citation in reference to cleanliness, health, anything like that concerning the children.
As I look at the aerial photo, looks like there's some kind of fencing that
Yes, the
goes
yard
around
is
as part of
fenced. The yard is fenced, and there's a gate on the front that, just has a little doorway, a latch gate. The neighbor made a comment that the fence was hers. I mean, it's fenced. So if the request is that I put my own fence beside her fence, that's not an issue. But the yard is totally fenced.
Okay. And it looks like that comes up to the front of the building. Looks like
It
that
comes
is-
up to the front of the,
Yeah, I guess
brick.
it's, yes. So
Yes.
It's, I guess, perpendicular to the front of the house.
yes.
And how tall is that fence?
Would you say that? I would say the fence is like 4 feet, maybe? 3? 4, about 4 feet.
Okay.
I was just looking to the.
And what's it made out of?
Metal, chain link.
Okay, so it's chain link fence.
And that's on the right side of the yard. On the left side of the yard is a taller fence, which is probably, I would say, 6 feet on that side of the yard.
Okay.
So one side has a shorter fence than the other side.
Okay, and the side that has the taller fence, is that on the side of the neighbor who has written in support, or is it in
The neighbor
side?
that wrote in support, yes.
Okay, all right. So on the one side of the property, the fence is 6 feet high. The
Yes.
other side, it's 4 feet.
Yes.
Okay. And are the children ever allowed in the front yard, or do they?
No,
always go
not
back?
unsupervised. They're on the porch sometimes with the staff. It's just sitting on the porch, but never running around in the front yard, no. I just had a visit on Thursday of last week from childcare. They came out, and again, to response to the complaint. And the last statement she gave me before she left was, "Ms. Braxton, continue to do what you're doing." And actually, she made a comment that if complaints continue to come in unfounded from the same place, then they view that as a nuisance, because it kind of wastes their time.
All right. Now, you're a home daycare now, and I think that's 8 kids?
Yes,
Okay, and you want to go up to 40.
yes, we want
So-
to utilize the entire home, actually. I know that would mean I need to move.
All right, well, if you're going to do that, we've got a diagram of the first floor
And
and
the
of
lower
the
level.
basement.
Yes,
But you're talking about using the entire home, so is there a
It will-
is there a second floor?
it is a second floor, but that wouldn't be used for childcare. That would be used for office space and storage. It's sort of an attic. It's livable, but it's attic space, and there's no exit from up there, so that wouldn't be childcare space.
Okay, so it's just going to be on the
First floor and the lower
basement.
level.
Okay, and as I look at this, this diagram that you've got set up here, can you walk us through where the different groups of children will be located?
Well, I don't have a copy in front of me, I apologize.
Sure,
The-
you can take mine.
The largest room, which is 26 feet by 15 and a half feet, would have the bulk of the toddlers. There are 2 other rooms, 11 by 13, and the only way you can provide services to children, they come out and they actually measure 35 square feet per child. So they would actually tell me, even though I'm requesting 40, if it only is suitable for 29, that's all they would approve it for. So I put 40 on there based on what I measured, but that was based on the lower level being one big open space, and the main level being the one larger room and the 2 smaller rooms, which used to be bedrooms. So that's kind of how the children would be. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, so where would the different groups of children be located? I know that at least I believe that the ratio for children increases by age because it increases
Yes.
by mobility. So,
Yes. So-
infants are gonna be smaller
Right.
because they can't really get around,
Right.
and then toddlers, and then you said you go all the way up to school age?
Right, which would be the
So
lower
that's
level.
gonna be 6-year-olds?
Yeah, starting at about 6 years old.
Okay, so if you could go through and say,
The infants would be the bedrooms, which you see off where it says room 1 and room 2. Those are the smaller rooms. That would only support about 4 infants.
in each one?
Yes, either 4 infants or 4 toddlers, either one, but 4 children, basically, based on the square footage. So those would be rooms off to themselves. And then the room that's 26 by 15 could support up to 14 to 15 children, based on whether or not they take away for certain pieces of furniture and things like that. The room currently is set up very open, so based on what licensing told me thus far, that she's looking at about 15 children for that level. The lower level, which is an open space, you all should have that right behind it. That space, based on the measurements and because there's no heavy furniture down there, she estimated about 20 children. So that was the estimates. Again, they come out and do a hard measurement, and so does the fire department and the health department.
Okay. And
And that, if I could.
then, sure.
I just wanted to add that in reference to myself and Ms. Talby, is that how you pronounce it? We had a conversation out in the hallway, and clearly she's still in opposition. However, I did make a statement to she and her husband that I was more than willing to talk to them. I made attempts before. She made it clear to me that sometimes she gets angry and doesn't want to talk to me. But I just think it's important if we're going to be neighbors to be able to communicate. So that was my initiation to try to talk with her. Her husband, however, is a little easier to talk to. So he and I have had conversations, and she even wrote in her letter that she feared retaliation. And I asked her husband, like, have I ever given you any indication that there would be any type of aggression based on me talking to you? And I just didn't know where that came from. But I have attempted to talk to them on several occasions, as I did with all the neighbors.
Okay, and then do you know the approximate measurements of the backyard space?
I do. Okay, 1 second. Based on the, this engineer survey, which you all should have, I'm looking at this, the across is 50 feet, as he stated, but as I read this, I'm not clear if they took away the part for the garage, but this form right here gives you all the measurements. It's 21 feet in length, it looks like, and I apologize, I'm not quite sure how to read these very well, but
Sure, that sounds like it might be up to
I'm
the
not sure.
garage.
But this was a drawing from an engineer that has all the outlines, and I also indicated the space behind the garage.
The hours again?
We are actually licensed from 6 a.m. to midnight. We care for children currently from 6:30 a.m. to about 9:30 p.m. some days.
You're currently just using what, the first floor?
Yes, the first floor that's on the drawing.
But you're only currently licensed for 8?
All family providers are licensed for 8. So if you want to do more than that, then you apply to be a center, which is what I'm doing.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Mike Hilliard, I'm the Community Services Director, Interim Executive Director of Hartwell Community Organization. We're an umbrella over 27 neighborhoods in Northeast Baltimore, one of which is the affected community in this situation, Sedmont Improvement Association. They, as Mr. Henry read portions of my letter, they They met on January the 8th. Their concerns about this property are, as Mr. French noted, Mary Avenue is a very narrow one-way street with parking on both sides of the street with limited to no off-street parking for the residences. So all on-street parking is currently used by either the residents or the staff of the daycare. Also currently is during pickup and drop-off, it is not unusual, according to the association, that parents impede traffic until the child is picked up or dropped off. They're very concerned that this is occurring with only 8 children on the site. When you increase it to 40, it's going to significantly compound it. I would also note that if you follow planning's recommendations, the amount of square footage in the backyard would be reduced because there would be parking back there then. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Teresa Talby. I live directly next to the property. I've lived there for 32 years. I bought the property from my mom in 2003, so I grew up here. The street, they made it a one-way when I was a small child because of how the street turns. So it has always been a very quiet neighborhood. Pretty much the only people who travel down the street are people who live on the street or visitors of the people who live on the street. It's just a very quiet neighborhood, always has been. It's very narrow where our house is at. And ever since their daycare is open, the flow of traffic has completely increased. They have people who stop in the middle of the street to drop their children off. She has, since talked to some of those people to ask them not to do that. Their driveways are still blocked, walkways are still blocked, especially in bad weather. The residents can't park in front of their houses. They have to park in front of other people's houses. There's not adequate parking for what they have right now. And then to increase it, it's going to be 10 times worse. Another concern of mine is the fact that if there is a daycare center next to my home, at some point when I decide to resell, the value of my home is going to be decreased because somebody's not going to want to live next to a business when this isn't a residential neighborhood. I saw that they suggested this drop-off zone, but even with that, if all these children are being dropped off and picked up at the same time, there's still not going to be enough spots for 40 people to drop and pick off their children. They currently can fit, I think, 2 cars in front of their property. They own 2 cars themselves, plus if they have employees. So it would our street is already so trafficky because of this, and now it's just going to make it 10 times worse for the people who live on there. Yes, they got letters of support, but a lot of those people don't live on the street and don't have to deal with this. My property is the one that has the shorter fence, which the shorter fence is our fence. We have a dog. Our dog has been bothered by the children. My husband addressed it with her. We thought it was resolved too. The very next day, or that was addressed on a Friday, that Monday I had to call the police because a rock was thrown at my dog. The children flat out admitted it to me. And then that's when I called the police because nothing was addressed in my eyes at that point.
What was supposed to have been, or how was it supposed to have been addressed?
We asked that the children not antagonize our dog, not, tease him at the fence, go up to the fence, throw things at him. And she agreed that, she didn't want a child to be bit. We both have the same goal at the bottom is we don't want anybody to get hurt and we don't want to have to put our dog to sleep because of this.
Is it possible that since there's a 6-foot-high fence on one side of the property, there could be a 6-foot-high fence on the other side?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So can you 2 agree to that?
We could.
It wouldn't be your expense, it would be mine, so I
Right.
would ensure that it gets done.
That would be at her expense. We've looked into it, but,
And now, as far as the parking situation goes, as far as, I think what's been discussed with the planning department is, and the applicant at the beginning of the hearing agreed to the conditions stated by the planning department, which included creation of it fits 2 cars, and then if it's expanded out, there'll be parking for 5, is that right? And then with the dedicated drop-off and pickup zone in the front, that would ameliorate certainly, at least to some extent, the traffic congestion. One thing that I would point out is that this is frequently comes up in cases like this, where there is a request for a daycare to be located in what is zoned as a residential area. While it's true that it is zoned as a residential area, the purpose of this hearing is to determine whether or not, as a conditional use, a daycare can be operated in this location. The way that really works is that when the mayor and city council enact the zoning code, they come up with a list of permitted uses. It's uses that are just simply permitted as of right in all of the different zones. And then there's another category of uses below that called conditional uses. And the reason why they're conditional is that they are conditionally approvable if certain criteria are met, and the case law says that conditional uses are presumptively valid uses unless there's something about them in that particular location that makes them particularly unsuitable relative to any other place in the zone. So it has to be something that elevates it above, well, it's located at this property instead of that one. It has to be something wrong with this particular location. And that can come as a surprise to a lot of people, because you think, oh, it's a residential area, the only residential uses, this is a commercial use. But it's not quite the state of affairs. While the use may not be permitted as of right, it is a permissible use if certain criteria are met, and it's a use which is presumptively valid unless, as I said, it can be shown that there's something about it that makes it particularly unsuitable here. And a lot of times, that comes as a little bit of shock to a lot of people who are in your situation, where they come in and they find out that, there's going to be this commercial operation that wants to be located next to me. Now, the other thing about conditional uses is that, as the name implies, you can put conditions on it, like those offered by the planning department, like the one that I think was just agreed to here, as far as the fence at the applicant's cost, as also the requirement to work to get a dedicated drop-off and pickup zone.
But our streets still won't allow for that many people to be on it. It's going to be complete chaos. So for the residents that live on there, we now suffer because of that.
Well, as I think I heard the testimony, the hours are, what were they again? I know that they go into midnight. And
we are
then
currently licensed from 6 a.m. to midnight. However, if I can just add, I'm more than willing to work with the community. I'm not here trying to cause trouble. At the end of the day, I've lived in this community for 20 years as well. I've lived in that home for 7 years, and I live 2 blocks over on Parkline Avenue for 12. So my desire is not to, uproot this community and cause a whole lot of chaos. My biggest concern is just simple communication. Whatever we can do to work with the community, which is what we try to do, to ensure that everybody's needs are met. But again, the need of childcare is obviously there as well. The parents that we serve are people that live in the neighborhood. I'm sorry?
When do the bulk of the kids come?
The bulk of the kids are there by 9. So between like 7 and 9,
Okay.
the bulk of the children are there.
And being picked
On
up
the
between
evening,
4 and 5?
yes. In the evening, children that I currently have are 3. So the evening is lighter than the morning. It's just more parents that have AM jobs in the evening. But the bulk of the kids will continue to be in the morning, which is, my expectation, just based on the need of parents and the hours people work.
And is it possible to do some kind of a staggered drop-off so that there's, this group of kids comes in at, this time and that sort of thing?
One of-
So that it's phased,
Right.
like, by half
What-
an hour or something?
Yes. One of the things that my staff and I have sat down to talk about is how to ensure that there's not a gridlock in reference to traffic. First of all, the double parking is a non-issue currently. That has totally been resolved. But even with the pick up and drop off right in front of the door, one of the things that we proposed was somewhat of a valet, where the parents could call ahead and we could have a staff person, pick the child up, which childcare agreed to that. So that's not anything illegal in terms of them being right in front of the door to the curb, as long as the staff person meets that adult. So that would eliminate them having to walk all the way in at both pick up and drop off, which would expedite their time that they're there.
So Mary Avenue, Mary Street, Mary.
Avenue.
You have parking allowed on both sides of the street.
Yes.
So at some point in time, you're gonna have cars coming in. I'm trying to envision.
Yes, so one
And
way.
it's gonna have to back up, even if you have a dedicated pickoff and drop-off zone, it has to back up at some point. Because if you have more than 2 cars, you're gonna be blocking Mary Avenue.
I would think not, simply because if we did the valet style pick up and drop off. And also the other thing is in reference to, of course, there would be the 2 spots in front of my door. We also, again, have the space in the back. And I don't know if this is an option, but my other next door neighbor wrote in her letter that she was willing to give us of her 5 dedicated parking spaces too. So we do have other options as well. And she's been there for about 11 years, so I don't think she's going anywhere anytime soon. But she's agreed to do that, just in total support of the expansion.
Okay, so as far as the drop-off goes, like this drop-off and pickup, are you proposing that, that there would be staff that would be
Able to-
outside, and then,
Right,
so
pick
that
'em up
the
and-
parents wouldn't have to then take the child inside, they would just
It
simply
would-
get them out of the car and
Right.
then move on?
Right.
Then,
It
okay.
would make it faster.
And, there's parking that's in the rear, so obviously that alley is accessible. How wide is that?
I'm not sure, but I know cars go up and down.
20 feet?
Yeah. I mean, cars drive up and down the alley.
Okay.
That's the way to the garage.
Because I was going to suggest, is it possible to,
Do the drop off in the back?
yeah, well, I was going to suggest, as much as you may stagger it, you might have a group where you say, okay, this group arrives at the front, that
Back,
group
right.
arrives at the back. So
We could
that
do
way
that.
you don't get, so that way you don't get
A gridlock, yeah.
everyone trying to use the same entrance.
Is that a paved alley?
And the part of the alley that's not behind our home, but further down, most cars don't go down that part because it's just really rough, like it can almost take the bottom of your car out.
Yeah, I guess I can see that.
Because even where our property is, like we have a camper that we park on the back of our property, and sometimes getting that out can be quite challenging and bumpy because of where the alley is.
Okay. All right, so it seems that may not be quite so feasible, though you can use that space.
I mean, their neighbors on the other side,
Drive there all the
they
time.
they drive further down into it.
Mhm.
So I mean, people do use it, it's just, it's the people who live there who use it that have kind of figured out what bumps to take.
Okay. Was there anything further, ma'am? Okay. The floor is yours to close. Is there anything further you'd like to add?
I'd just like to add in closing that, again, my goal is to be a part of the community as I have been, not to come in and cause any confusion, and to hopefully open up a larger dialogue with Ms. Talby, because again, she and I haven't talked a whole bunch, and she seems to be a bit resistant to that. However, her husband and I have talked several times, so my goal is to ensure that, everybody's happy in the community, not to come in and try to bombard everybody with a headache.
Okay. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Okay, 2014-549, 1119 Bayard Street, Angela Jeffries.
Yes.
Hi. Okay. All right, Ms. Jeffries, as I had said before, this is an application, well, we have this as an application to use the first floor of the premises as a 26-child daycare center, that's correct?
Yes.
Okay. If you both can raise your hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you share about you this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And, sir, your name for the record?
Richard Parker.
Okay. All right. Now, Ms. Jeffries and Mr. Parker, we had asked if you two had wanted an opportunity to speak for the hearing. I presume you were able to do that. Any resolution reached?
Yes.
Okay. Who wants to speak about?
Essentially, the opposition was coming because we hadn't communicated, we hadn't received any information from the applicant. Regarding certain questions that have been raised. And Ms. Jeffries before willing to accommodate the community. Speaking to, at the community association meeting, which just happens to be tonight. So she's gonna come up this evening, provided there's sufficient support, we'll offer her a letter of support, and she can continue on.
Okay. So then I guess the condition is that you'll come to the community association meeting this evening. The community association name, sir?
Citizens of Pigtown.
Okay. So the Citizens of Pigtown Community Association meeting this evening, and seek the community's support. And then I guess based on that, the community may or may not submit a letter of support in your case. Right?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay. Do we have staff reports?
I have nothing, I believe, planning has it.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application and noted that although the department supports operation of a daycare center at this location, this is a fairly small property. It is a two-story building, which previously included a beauty shop. It was a residential mixed-use corner store kind of building. And for that reason, the department is not convinced that 25 children would be supportable at this location and is recommending a lower maximum of 15 children. Subject to that comment, however, the department recommends approval conditional upon the daycare center having a maximum of 15 children at any one time. And secondarily, the issue of passenger loading zone, which you've just heard in the previous case. There is no place on Bayard Street itself where people can stop and drop off or pick up children. This would have to be arranged on the side street. I believe it's called Sargent Street, if I remember this correctly. And on that basis, the department is also recommending as a condition that the applicant request approval of a passenger loading zone by the Parking Authority of Baltimore City in order to serve the needs for drop-off and pick-up of children safely at this location. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. French. Okay. Ms. Jeffries, are the conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay. So their recommendation was to revise downward the maximum permissible number of children to 15 from 25.
Okay.
And also the requirement of a passenger loading zone. Okay, I see what you're talking about. They'd also like you to work to get that as well.
Okay, not a problem.
All right. Why don't you tell us what it is you're planning here?
I'm planning a daycare center, and daycare will only allow 15 children because of the bathrooms.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's not going to be 25 anyway. It has to be 15. They won't license me no more than 15.
Okay.
And
Easy
hours of operation will be from 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday.
All right. Okay. Is there? Okay, yeah. so we've got a floor plan here. I presume this is the first level of the
Yes,
structure?
yes.
Okay. And what'll be going on in the second and basement levels? Anything?
I won't be
related-
using the basement. They won't approve it, just the first floor,
Okay, just the first floor, not
the
even
first level.
second?
No,
Okay. All right, so you've got, it's 28 by 18 by 14.
so when you first walk in, the first, it's wide open, and then I have another room in the back.
Yeah, I just saw that one there. Okay, and you got the 2 bathrooms. All right, pretty simple. All right, are you currently operating a daycare there?
No, I'm not.
Okay, and have you had prior experience operating a daycare?
Yes, I had a daycare on 1111 McKean Avenue. It was a family of 8, family-style daycare 8, so I want to expand.
Okay, and are you currently operating that?
No, I
Or-
just closed it down.
Oh, you
Because
just
I'm
closed it.
trying to open this one up. yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so you closed that one down. You're
Yeah.
trying to this one up to replace it. Okay. Any questions? All right. Sir, was there anything you wanted to say?
I'm sorry, we're talking about one side.
Okay.
There was an additional issue with the posting of the sign. It just kind of occurred to me that some people didn't feel that it was properly posted because it's behind that grate, as opposed to most signage is posted on the outside of the building. So there were a number of people who felt that it wasn't adequately visible. So that may not be an issue since you're coming to the meeting tonight, and then you'll have sufficient time if technically it's not posted properly, by the time the next zoning, by the time you're scheduled for
So they
another
said they
hearing.
couldn't see it, because when I rode past, I could see it real good.
Yeah.
I even can see it at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was the intent after you two talked that the petitioner would speak to the association and then you guys would come back and present? Or was the intent that you go forward today, that we hold off on making a decision and then you guys either give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Seems like a combination of.
Just about what your intent
Yeah,
is.
it seems like a combination of what you're saying. Yes, the intent is for Ms. Jeffries to appear before the Community Association tonight, at tonight's community meeting, provided that there's sufficient support. We'd write a letter of support and provide it to Ms. Jeffries and make it available for the next hearing. But we didn't necessarily want a decision
Is that your
altogether.
understanding, were you two on the same page with that? We just want to make sure that we understand what we're doing with you today.
Well, I'm going to go tonight and, let them know what I'm doing.
Okay.
But I thought you was going to make a decision today, but that's fine.
I mean, provided that that's a contingency, contingent upon the community.
Well, that's it's up to you guys.
Well, yeah, if as a board you all choose to approve, that's fine if you're approving on the condition that there's community support. I don't know if that's clear.
Yeah, the way that I understood it was that, that what the community was seeking was assurance from the applicant that she would appear in front of them and present her, basically give the community information about what it is you're proposing. And then based on that, the community may or may not submit a letter of support in favor of what it is you're seeking. But that wasn't I guess, that letter wasn't, at least as I understood it, wasn't the necessary part of going forward as far as our deliberation. What was being sought was that the community wanted information from the applicant, and the applicant agreed to provide that at this hearing, at this evening's
Right.
meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It absolutely is based on the community. The community's position would be that we would be in support of it moving forward, provided that there is sufficient community support. So it's not just making appearance for appearance sake, it's not.
Okay, so then what you're really asking for is,
Maybe you are asking for a postponement.
yeah, that's what,
So I have to get it postponed, even if I go tonight, just to let them know what I'm doing?
Well,
It's-
you're the appellant. I mean, and it's your decision whether or not you want to postpone this case or not.
Right.
We will make it, if you don't postpone, we will make a decision, either pro or con.
Right. Because I really didn't want to postpone it, although I was going to go to the meeting. I didn't even know that they were having a meeting tonight.
Okay.
In their case, then
Well,
there's community opposition.
Sir,
because-
sir, just a minute. Sir, we can't hear from you yet because you weren't sworn and such. So, sir.
Right. So initially, the community's position is that we're in opposition. We signed in opposition to this particular Bayard Street project because we do not have sufficient information. There are a number of questions, parking, at that time, 26 children.
But it's not going to be, they won't even license me
Right.
for,
That's
it's
why I said
it's
at
15.
that time, yeah. Parking, there's a school just a half a block over, so the traffic, Sergeant Street,
But
with
that
the residents who
school
live
is
on
like across Washington Avenue. It's, I don't.
Well, let's not get into the merits of it, but
Right.
we're talking procedurally here, how we're going to handle this.
Right. So for us, they were questions, and they may very well be questions that Ms. Jeffries is able to come and answer, and everyone is satisfied at the end of the day. But we're not at all comfortable with any particular establishment opening without communicating with the community and getting community input before moving forward.
Okay. So what the community association then is requesting is a postponement so that you can meet with them. It's not incumbent upon you to agree to that if you don't want to. But then if you're not agreeing to the postponement, which is what they're now clarifying what they're seeking, then you wouldn't postpone it, and then we would just simply go forward and hear the case, and you would lodge your objection on behalf of the community association. So,
And how long would a postponement, would it,
probably until the next hearing date, that would be like 2 weeks.
in 2 weeks? I don't want to postpone it.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so I think we have, unless there are any questions of the applicant, we've heard from her, in which case it would be your opportunity to speak, Mr. Parker.
So it's pretty much the points that we've kind of put forward. There's nothing, I've spoken to Ms. Jeffries, and her husband, seem to be very nice people. We don't necessarily want to get in the way of business. We want to promote business. You all may have noticed that I'm here with a 3-year-old, so it may be a business that very well benefits me. I may be one of her customers, but it still stands to reason that the community of Pigtown, in the current situation in which it exists so because any number of businesses over the years have just come in without informing the community, without community support, without just some simple line of communication between the community and that entity. And so now, until the, alcohol outlet density reduction, there was an overabundance of liquor stores. There's still even now, an overabundance of convenience stores. And so now it's at the point where we're trying to rein those things in. We're trying to make it, and this is standard, and we do it. And I did explain this to Ms. Jeffries. We do this for everyone. You're not being singled out. Just like I said, I may very well turn into a customer, but we want this done in the same way that we do for every establishment that's opening, for every resident who needs some sort of zoning change because of an addition that they want to make to their house, whatever the case might be. We just want that same, that sort of consistency. So we just like for it to appear before the community. I don't personally, from what I've heard, have opposition to it, but I'm one person. And I'm one person, and we're very democratic in that way. The community as a whole has to decide whether this is something that they want. I don't think that it's altogether fair for Ms. Jeffries or myself just to impose that on the community. Come to the community. You're not scheduled for the agenda for tonight, but I will make it so that you're on the agenda tonight. I will make sure that you're seen as quickly as possible and heard as quickly as possible so that you can move forward. And we'll gladly sign a letter of support if that's the will of the community. But that's just a simple request.
Tell me about parking. You have our data sheet shows that, based on the number of students, well, maybe this will be less, David. If we have 15 students, how many, what's staff with projection?
I think it's one for every 6, but it rounded off, so 15.
Okay, so parking requirement would be one space. Okay.
And actually, it's going to be myself and another worker, and my husband going to drop me off because he works in Baltimore as well. So I will be dropped off. But on the side of the, not bay yard, but on the side of my, like on the side of the building, it's parking. It's no houses right there. It's just the side of my building. So even with, and one thing about daycare, I've never seen where all the parents drop the kids off at one particular time. It's sporadically during the morning. So I don't see where a traffic jam, and then across is Carroll Park, and it's ample parking right directly across the street.
Do you have 100% lot coverage with your building? Looks like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm more than willing to go tonight to speak with the community and let them know what I'm doing, bringing a daycare to the community.
Mr. Parker?
Yes, sir.
What would you, do you have a particular title in the community?
I'm the
association?
president of the community association.
And what would you say is sort of the average number of residents that attend the meetings?
We average about 50. Even more so since sanitation will be there tonight, so maybe a greater turnout than usual.
That may be lucky or unlucky for you.
Yeah.
David, I'm a little bit, scratching my head a little bit on something in our data sheet. The part about the minimum lot area of 5,000 square feet.
Yeah, well, that's what the code says.
This is for single-family detached.
Yeah, I was trying to find where that,
If you look at the bulk regulations for a single family detached structure,
mm-hmm.
it's 5,000 square feet. So that's. However, this is a non-conforming use structure, and allowing a daycare
that was my
would
question.
eliminate the non-conforming status of the property. So it's kind of a trade-off, lot area versus the benefit of eliminating the non-conforming use in the community. The board has in the past considered that as a viable exchange, but technically it is a major issue.
Okay. In the non-conforming use structure that would be traded would be,
Well, the first floor commercial space would have a difficult time changing to another non-conforming use once that chain is broken.
yes. All right, I see what you're talking about.
David, does that assume that it was operated as a beauty shop within the last year?
Well, it's a good question, too.
So I see that there was a prior approval for the office, for an office space.
The board did authorize an office there in June of 2014. So the implication with that is the office is the non-conforming authorized use. They have a year to get their permit from the previous approval.
Okay.
So the non-conforming status is still technically viable.
Live.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Anything?
And hopefully, Transform Baltimore will solve that issue about the 5,000 square foot issue in high-density neighborhoods.
That was a head scratcher. Okay. Anything further from the meeting?
No.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can we take a 5-minute recess?
Sure. All right. We're going to go off the record for 5 minutes. Afternoon, Ms. Smith. Another familiar theme. We have this as a application to use the entire premises as a 55-child daycare center. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you can raise your hand and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right. Do we have staff reports?
Yes. First, we have a letter from Harbell dated December 19th that they have rescinded and replaced with another letter because on January 7th, Ms. Smith made a presentation at the association's general membership meeting. She indicated she owns 5923, 5925, and 5927 Fairwood Avenue, and that she will vacate 5925 Fairwood Avenue, and she will utilize it solely as a daycare facility. She showed that the 3 properties provide sufficient parking for staff and parent drop-off. She indicated she will only be able to serve the number of children as a daycare center allowable by state licensing mandates. The association then voted to rescind its previous position on this appeal and supports Ms. Smith in this appeal. The letter from Harbell is referring to the Glenham Belhar Community Association. So Harbell thereby rescinds its previous position on this appeal, and it too supports the Community Association to support this appeal. And we have planning's report.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this is, in a sense, revisiting a previous appeal that came to this board back in 2009 to use the property as a 20-child daycare center. And there was an extensive discussion at that time of the issues of the use of the property next door, known as 5927. The department notes that Fairwood Avenue is only 12 feet wide, therefore there is no possibility of a passenger loading zone being provided on that street. The applicant has indicated to the department that the primary means of getting children to and from this location would be transportation provided by the applicant in the form of passenger vans and passenger minibuses, basically. On that basis, the department is recommending approval of this appeal, conditional upon the applicant continuing to provide transportation of the children using this facility, and upon the applicant providing a written lease for parking of staff vehicles on the adjoining property now known as 5923 Fairwood Avenue. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. French, you said that you would seek a lease for the parking on 5923?
In order to accommodate the additional staff which would be required by the increase of the daycare facility from 20 children to 55 children.
I
Yes.
thought there was common ownership.
There may be common ownership, but that is still an issue where the lots could, in theory, go to different owners in the future. We believe there should be a lease required at this time. The applicant has spoken with me personally before this hearing began and indicated she is considering purchasing 5923 and would at that point become the common owner. But until that happens, we believe there should be a lease in place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Ms. Smith, you've heard the conditions stated by the planning department. Is that, are they acceptable to you?
Yes,
Okay. All right, and why don't you tell us about, I do remember this case a little bit, but why don't you tell us about what you're proposing here, including your discussion, the maintenance of the van service for the daycare, any expansion of that, and then kind of update us on how you see your operation transforming from the, I guess you're approved now for 30 to out to 55 kids.
Well, as we speak as today, there is such a high demand of child care service at my daycare. We already have a waiting list that's into place, but I can't go forward with that until I get approved of increasing the amount of kids. We accommodate all the kids with special needs in our area and outside our area, and we just there to really to support the kids. Our goal is to get them prepared for the upcoming school years. There's a lot of kids that comes into my daycare, they're age 4 and 5, and they're not able to read. They don't know how to spell their name. So our goal is to reach each and every kid and get them prepared for this upcoming school year.
Okay.
And as far as parking shouldn't be an issue whatsoever. We're about to go to closing on 5923, but it's going to be my property also. I already resigned there as we speak. We're using the parking space as we speak, and not every staff that works at my daycare also drive. So we have a total of 30 parking spaces.
Okay. And you said that you have a waiting list right now. About how many folks do you have on there?
I have on that list of approximately 35 kids already.
Okay.
And I call around to other daycares too, because I can't accommodate them. And some of the parents need childcare right away. So I call to a lot of the daycares that's sitting here now to pass the information on to them.
Okay. All right.
And we've been in business for 12 years by the grace of God. And no complaints whatsoever.
And you said if you go to closing on the adjoining property, you'll have how many parking spaces?
A total of 30.
30.
Because they are 5923 is only going to be used for staff. Right now, as we speak, we have enough to accommodate 25. And we also own 3 of the 15 passenger vans that we're transporting kids in and out the daycare. So it's never an issue with traffic problem in a neighborhood, or even blocking the street, or parking, or or staff or parents parking on someone else's property.
Okay. Now, you're here on behalf of the Community Association.
Correct, which supports it.
Yes. So I was going to say, was there anything that you'd like to add?
The only thing additional I'd add is that I was incorrect in my letter that she owns 5923 Fairwood. I talked to her early. She's currently leasing it, and notice in her testimony she said she resides there now. So that apparently there's already, according to the appellant, an existing lease for the property with her intent is to buy it. The difference between Fairwood and the previous one I testified on is Fairwood's a relatively remote street, very few houses on it, and it's bordered on the other side by a large forested lot. And I think what impressed the Community Association is she has very adequate plans for parking and sufficient space within the 3 properties to accommodate staff and parent drop-off, pickup, and her van service.
Any questions? All right. Thank you.
You so much. Thank you
you.
also.
Okay, and 2014-555, 3925 Gulf Street, Dana Green.
you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Afternoon, Mr. Green.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
We have this as an application to use the portion of the premises known as 310 Grundy Street for a community recreation center with accessory snack bar while retaining the existing auto parts warehouse with accessory sales and auto repair to include bodywork.
That's
Second.
correct.
Right. Do we have staff reports?
Excuse me.
Yes.
The body work was eliminated.
Okay.
That was one of the deals we made with the community.
Okay, take that out. So it's to use a portion of the premises known as 310 Grundy Street for a community recreation center with accessory snack bar while retaining the existing auto parts warehouse with accessory sales and auto repair, period.
That's correct.
All right. All right, staff reports.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed the application. What the department had available to it did not unfortunately include a floor plan.
We just got a glance at one a short time ago. More specifically, there was no description in the application that was available to planning of the actual activities and the days and hours of operation of those activities and the number of people that would be expected to attend those activities. And therefore, the department was going to recommend deferral of a complete hearing of this appeal to allow the applicant time to provide that information. Thank you.
Okay. Now you said the planning department was going to
We have spoken with Mr. Green before this hearing, and if he is able to provide that information, then we would obviously withdraw that recommendation and substitute something else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. I'd like to apologize to planning. A lot of times I do provide them with the information because Mr. French made me aware that they don't always get everything that was submitted. But because of a holiday, I really didn't get it to him. So I apologize to him. And I'd like to say to the board, I do have the information that he needs. He didn't get a copy of the floor plan. I think he's seen that now. First, let me start off in order. Okay, this is to satisfy a commitment we made to the Community Association last year when they supported our appeal for the auto warehouse and supplies. They saw, actually, the guys had already set up 2 volleyball courts and an indoor little soccer field, and they were letting the little kids in the neighborhood use it, but it wasn't legal. When the president of the association toured the building, he saw it. He said it would be something that he thought the community would enjoy and support. And we made a commitment that once they were up and running and had money to facilitate addressing that, they would pursue that for the community. This is a copy, this is a copy of the correspondence that I did send to the community about this particular appeal, letting them know that we were ready to proceed with the Community Recreation Center and we were looking for their input and support. Now, in speaking, in addressing the, addressing the comments that planning had, okay, this is basically going to be for the kids. We're going to make the facility available to the community association for any meetings or activities. They suggested they may want to have an indoor festival, which would require a special events permit each time we did one for them in that capacity. But it's more or less for the kids. They're going to have 2 volleyball courts and an indoor soccer court. I doubt if it's regulation, but it's there. They want to have a little snack shop that they can accommodate, you know, if parents are there or something, wait for the kids and everything. Plus, it'll help them offset the expenses because what they want to do is start a couple of leagues for the kids. And they're hoping that the league fees and the snack shop will support this. Now, as far as the hours of operation, it's going to be open 6 days a week. Right now, the only thing they have in the pipe works is the volleyball leagues and the soccer leagues. Now, what they're gonna do is they're gonna have the facility open from 3 to 8, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, like an after-school thing, where the teams can come in and practice, and they have a facility to practice. Saturdays, they'll have their games scheduled, and they'll be open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it's limited time, it's for the kids. The other issue was parking in the building, 100% lot coverage. It's adjacent to industrial area where there's plenty of on-street parking, pardon me. They've got a couple of vacant lots there, but they don't belong to him. The lots that do have industrial structures on them have their own parking. So on-street parking is available 1, 2, 3, and going east on each of those streets for a block. They've got plenty of on-street parking. On the other side of the building, the residential begins. And that's where we're going to be getting a lot of the kids from. They've got a large mixed community there, a lot of Latino kids and this type thing. And so they're addressing that. I was hoping I was hoping that Mr. Bernard would meet me here today, but evidently he wasn't able to meet me. But basically, that's what we want to do. We want to meet that commitment to the community. As far as the number of people, the fire department's actually going to have to come in and set the capacity, and they won't do that until the use is approved. Okay. So we have the days and hours of operation for this. It's basically going to be kids. The fire department will set the capacity rating. And the meeting schedules and this type for the community association, this type thing is something we're going to have to work out with the community, because we don't know how many community associations are going to want to use the facility, when they're going to have their meetings. But during the week before 3 o'clock, that'll just be vacant space. The businesses will be functioning. After school, the kids will come in, do their practice, and hopefully you'll have a nice league. And then they can have the games on Saturday, just like Pop Warner football.
And this is purely community center, it's not gonna be rented out for?
No. We don't want a banquet hall. We don't want any type of facility like that.
Right.
No, we don't. No, if they do that, they'll get cited, I'm sure. I'm more than sure, because the community's been keeping close watch on them for the past year. They had a number
You
of...
understand why we asked the question?
Yes, sir. I asked the question, because when they start talking to me about having fairs for the association, that's first thing jumped in my mind. What type of fairs you're talking about? They can be fundraisers for the association, but you're going to have to get a special events permit, and it's going to be like a 1 or 2 day permit, and you have to be a nonprofit association, so it has to be done through the community association, this type thing. So I made sure that was, because originally when I filed it, zoning administration downstairs wrote it up, and they said it was a prohibited use. And I knew it was a conditional use because we had discussed it a year ahead of time. So I tried to do all my homework and cover all my bases.
Okay. Anything further?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, having heard that, the Planning Department has no objection to this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. All right, thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
And with that, we are off the record.
We always appreciate your forthrightness.
Yeah.
Oh, I got one
Yeah,
and then we are off the record.
well, we may still be on TV.
We are.
Okay, but the case.
All right, we had one consent case that did not appear. 2014-544, 3311 Toon Street, Gina Campbell. All right, Martin, was that person here at all?
We didn't have a comment on it.
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Oh, that's
the whole-
right.
I know,
Okay.
we can meet him that kind
Contact you to find out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, okay. Okay. All right, were there any ones that we had wanted to discuss?
I have two.
Okay.
549. I'm inclined to approve that, but I would like the process of prior consultation or visitation with the community association to occur. So I guess I would propose to the board that we defer for a session and give them the opportunity to hear the community.
Okay. What if the community association comes out and they send us a letter that says that they don't support it?
Then we'll make a decision.
Because, I mean, I think that what occurred was there was a, I think the community association was requesting a postponement of the case. She wasn't agreeing to that. And although she was fine with meeting with them and presenting what she wanted, I mean, presenting what she was seeking. And then, once she didn't agree to the postponement, we heard the case, and the community association had their president here to express their objection to it. So I think that on that level, I think that that ship is like left. The community association opposed it. They wanted her to postpone. She said no. They opposed it. She presented it. I thought that the discussion was that they were going to, and I think that we've had this in other cases where people agree to present something to the community association, because what their real objection is that, they want to see a process where people come and they meet and they give the community association information. That's their primary thing. So we've had cases where they've done that. Okay, but I think that, again, I think that whole like meet and confer thing, I think that we're beyond that at this point. They opposed it.
You could defer deliberation without having a whole hearing, perhaps.
Well, I think that was what again, I think that's what the community association was seeking, was a delay, and
That's what the applicant was seeking, the community association wanted a postponement.
Yeah, and I guess we didn't.
well, but here's the thing, is that the way that I understood it was that she did not want to delay this part of the process subject to the community association meeting. So if we deferred it, we would be really postponing it until the next hearing, because we don't convene again. We don't have the opportunity to deliberate until the next meeting.
Makes sense.
My other one is 552. Mary Avenue.
Yeah.
I think there was a sufficient showing of adverse impact such that the presumption is rebutted for conditional use in this one.
I think we can manage that with some conditions.
I mean, I don't see how it would be any different, how the house or how the daycare being located here would be any different than it being located in any other house on that street.
You're
We require the stagger of times, the erecting of the fence.
require the parking in the back. Yeah, I had the same,
I think 40 is too many.
yeah, and that was the other thing, was that I think that there's, and I think that we've dealt with this in other contexts where it's been sort of a similar setup where you have, you know, this residential area and it's like on a one-way street, and you got this expanding daycare, and how do we handle it? And I agree with Jay that there's, yeah, I think that there are controls that we can put on it to manage that, or at least to lessen the impact of it. And it's a conditional use request, so we can attach conditions to it. A number of them she already had agreed to, and I think that she'd indicated a willingness to agree to more to try to impact the community association as little as she can. I mean, I think that we were on the same page as far as trying to figure out, well, you know, when are the kids arriving, although it sounded like they primarily are all like during the day. I mean, I know that we've had some where the kids were arriving at all phases. And so it's not like, you know, you're getting all the kids arriving there, but she seemed to indicate that most of the children, not all of them, but most of the children would come in that morning time. So I think that even then we can use the staggering system, although I don't really know how we write that up.
Yeah, I think the valet issue was a big part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think that we can, because that one's pretty easy to write up, because we've done that in other cases where we've had requirement that there's staff. I mean, I think I remember one, I think it was maybe one of Lisa's cases, where the staff members were meeting the children at the sidewalk and then taking them inside so that the parents would then drive off and make way for another another parent to come in.
Part of how I look at this is, how is this different than a school that might be on the same block? Because every morning, you get double parking in front of the school for pick
Yes.
up and drop off at the end of the day. So if I weigh that, it's not like you don't want the school there.
True.
Can we mandate that valet function?
Yeah.
Just thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we've written that up as a condition in the past.
Yeah, I think we have,
Yeah, yeah.
Just thinking practically as a parent may want to personally walk their child into,
Well, then they can park somewhere else, and then they can park there and walk the child up to the door. But if they're going to stop in front of the house, then their kid is going to be, let out there and taken inside.
So maybe we can even go a step further and require that any parent that wants to escort their children personally has to park. They can't just leave their father.
See, that one's a little bit tricky because we can't, we're writing it up as a condition for the property owner, but the satisfaction of that part that you're talking about, that's a third party.
That's a police enforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think.
With the valet system, somebody will be out there to almost direct them to keep it moving.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way that we can write it up is that she's required to have the drop-off and pickup zone, and is required to staff it with one or more staff members who will be getting the children out of the car and then escorting them into the school, and then directing the parent or guardian to then move on. And then at that point, once we've sort of controlled what goes on in that passenger loading zone, then they can't permit somebody to just pull up, drop off, and say, oh yeah, I want to walk them in. It's going to be like, well, no, you can't do that. We can't let you do that. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to park somewhere else, because we need to make room for the other parents who are coming through. So it's sort of like a, you know, the flip side of the same thing. That we can't compel the parents what to do, but we can control this space.
That's only during the 7 to 9 and the 4 to 6.
Yes.
Front end and back end.
Yes,
of that.
yes.
With respect to the fence, I think it's been generally agreed upon, but should we make any conditions in terms of that being a privacy fence? The difference between a 4-foot fence and a 6-foot fence and chain link isn't that much when you got kids throwing rocks over their dog.
Sure.
I don't know that that's actually going to do anything.
Well,
in
they
terms
can't
of
see it.
If it's a privacy fence.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't replace a 4-foot
4-foot.
chain link with a 6-foot chain link.
Yeah, oh, no, yeah. What I had in mind was that, yeah, that there would be a 6-foot, like, stockade type fencing.
And that'll help with the neighbors'
Yeah.
noise.
Yeah, so that, you know, you're not, children can't see where it is. It's far too high for the dog to jump over. It's too high for the children to reach over. They can't tell where the dog is, so they can't throw things at. They can't even really know if the dog is in the yard, or if it is, where it is. So I think that that'll address that part of the issue. And she said that she was fine with replacing that fence at her expense. So.
I have one more question about 542.
But she wants to do it that way, however, but she's got to build a 6. However it's going to get addressed, the applicant's responsible for erecting a 6-foot high stockade type fence. Yes, so it's a condition that she has to go and file to get it and do all that. And assuming that she does get it, this is what she has to do. Yes, yeah, I understood that part, although I think that it's, yeah, I think it should be doable. Yeah, yeah. I mean, if she goes and she gets it, and then for some reason, is it transportation?
Parking authority.
Parking authority says, no, we can't give it to you. Well, we don't have the narrow street issue, right? I know that was the issue with some of the other ones, like the last one.
Yeah.
Yes, Fairwood is a very narrow street.
Yeah. But this one, I thought that there was enough, there was a wide
space.
enough street so that you can have it on, it meets the criteria anyway for, that makes it eligible.
Yes, on Mary.
Yes, Mary Avenue.
It's laid out like an inner suburban.
Can we look at 542 again?
Yes, I had that one down as a question mark too. I don't know about this.
My concern was, although I'd like to take Mr. Predaway at his word, that they were deliberating with the community association an hour before the hearing. And we haven't heard anything back from the community association with respect to the letter they wrote in opposition.
We could, if we were inclined to approve, we could approve it subject to the letter of opposition by the community association being withdrawn.
Yeah, I thought that there was
Well, that letter actually did go from
mission to, yeah, and it was talking about how they were going to submit a memorandum of understanding or something like that.
I mean, there were significant changes.
Yes.
In what was applied for.
Yes.
What was presented.
Yeah. And we can certainly hold it pending receipt of that or condition it upon what's set forth in the memorandum.
Yeah, I was okay with the project as revised.
Yeah, as revised.
Yeah, lower the height.
Yeah, take care of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing I had sort of nitpicky, was, you know, this whole creation of the lot in 1977 and the code exempting lots that were in existence as of, I guess, 71. I guess what you're dealing with at that point is that it's a lot that's created after the code is in existence that is essentially, well, it makes it difficult to build. So whoever created this plot of land intentionally created a problem.
They were probably, if you look at that picture, they were probably created to have separate garages and storage areas. I mean, they were never designed on dwelling units on those little lots.
Yeah, well, you know, they're the ones that, you know, that are really old, like you see them in Fells Point, I think, and some other places where you've got that sort of a setup. And this one, it's something that was created in the 70s as a totally separate lot. So I'm not sure that its intention was to create it for a garage. I mean, I really don't know why you would create it, but you know, as they said, that the setback requirements would only leave you with a 20-foot house. And so now we're left in this situation where, in order to build on it, we have to grant variances because of just simply the anomalous way that the lot was brought into existence. I have problems with a lot of zoning requests anyway, but really these variance requests. This one pushes it to the line. I think that they did work to address some of the other things that made it particularly objectionable. I mean, the height was definitely no go.
Is it worth noting that this particular appellant pushes that envelope every time?
But all lawyers have clients.
That section of the code
Well, yeah, I know.
is almost impossible to meet.
Yes.
It says on a lot that was established before April 27, 1971, a single-family dwelling may be established regardless of the minimum lot area requirements imposed by this article, as long as all other requirements
are met.
Are met.
Yes.
Well, that's impossible because, number one, it's only 14 feet wide. There's lot coverage, rear yard, and all these other issues. So the only way that could be met is if you were in a low-density district on a lot that requires, say, 5,000 square feet, and they've got one of 3,000, but they can meet all the other bulk regulations, then that would be a pertinent issue. But I don't think the intent of that was really to allow the construction of a single family on these kinds of lots in high-density neighborhood.
As I read the code, really what the code's intention is to freeze everything circa 1971.
Yeah.
Which is the reason why it's not the greatest document in the world to deal with. But that's not really my job.
The only, like on Olive Street, there's probably 15 other
Yes,
lots
and I
with
saw
similar
that if you look at the picture, the aerial, it looked maybe upwards of half a dozen other houses that were identical to what's being sought here.
And we have had, not in this block, but in further down.
Churchill Street. I mean, all those.
Well, even on Olive Street, we've had similar hearings in the past with that kind of construction. So it's certainly not out of the question, but.
What's our responsibility with respect to the fact that the density of that particular area is already facing a deficit with parking the way it is?
Well,
I do think they, with their agreement, that they won't get any.
Yeah, they'll only get one parking pass,
And they have one
and
off-street.
they already have one off-street. And frequently what the concern of the community members are that you get these houses that get built and they get stuffed with renters, and you get like, 5 people living there.
And they all get parking passes.
Yeah,
Because
and
who is going to
Right.
enforce this?
How, no one will know how many passes they have.
The
But that's
parking,
not our problem.
the parking authority is very aware of that issue now, and they're actually, as you saw in that letter, they've actually gone out and counted the number of spaces, and they're trying to get a much tighter control
Sure.
over those passes. But it's really not, that is really not a zoning.
I know.
we can't
That's
get
impossible.
them to use it.
I don't live there.
Anyway, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
All right, were there, all right, so what, so I guess there were,
No, I
We
don't know
wanted
what I
to-
wanna do on that one.
so do we want to defer on that pending receipt of the memorandum? Do we just simply want to leave it as that we incorporated, or?
I would defer, until we get it. They offered it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
We can punt it to them to work it
Yeah.
out.
Shame on us if we approve something and there was misrepresentation or some confusion or something.
Good point. All right,
Can we go back to 549 just for one more second?
sure.
The lot size. How do we deal with, how do we get
Well,
around that?
What, we were just talking
David was
about
being
this.
very creative.
And so, this is the issue, that if you look at 41106, as written, it makes no sense. Certainly not as applied here. Because what it says is, you get a C, it says, principal conditional uses in an R8 must comply with the minimum lot area and the maximum lot area requirements for single-family detached dwellings. Well, it's an R8 district, and you're talking about applying the lot area requirement for a detached
Right.
dwelling to a obviously
row house.
attached
Yeah. Right.
row house. And I don't see how anything could satisfy that requirement. It just seems to me to be impossible, and it doesn't really seem to be an equal fit. But what David was talking about was that there's an existing non-conforming office use that would be terminated
Right.
by this approval, and we swap that out for a conditional use, which gets it, cool, you get rid of the non-conforming issue, and
Okay.
then we sort of bring it back under control. So we
Okay.
get, that works out to be an equivalent swap. Particularly given the fact that you're talking about making an apple be an orange. That is to go by the lot area requirements. And there were other conditions that you had for that one, right, Martin?
The reduction to 15, I think, is important.
Yes, yes, and she agreed to that. Yeah. Yes, with loading zone.
Daycares are permitted in the B1 district. You got 2 ways you can go.
I'm still going back and forth.
So are there only 2 conditions you're thinking of for this property?
The only ones I was just simply gonna say with conditions, stated by the planning department, those are the ones that she had agreed to, and the ones that I'm remembering of those were the loading zone and the reduction to 15, which actually she amended it on the record anyway. Yeah, okay.
And then whether we added a third with respect to meeting the community association.
Well, on that one, as I said, I view that as being a stale issue at this point.
Right.
Because they opposed it. They wanted something, she said no, so they opposed it.
Well, what about the off-street parking?
There's no, I think it's a full lot coverage, building, so there's not the ability to provide it. And what would the?
It's one space.
One space?
I think the requirement's one.
Yeah. That's correct. So you reduce that, you give a 75% variance, and then that reduces it to a quarter, so it's not.
This didn't come up so much in testimony, as it did a conversation between the appellant and the proposed, but there was a potential issue of posting.
I'll let the chairman deal with that.
It's hard to address a posting concern
Without a
after we've
picture.
heard the hearing.
Hearing, yes. That's the other problem.
I don't know what to say about that.
And also yeah, it's one thing if there's a photo to show, because invariably.
Well, we don't know that there's not.
We don't.
Pending the community association wanting to be addressed.
Well, no, they came and they were prepared to argue the points of their opposition. But what my thought on
So they should
posting.
have brought that up if that was gonna be an issue.
Yes, is that first of all, if you're going to assert it, you're going to assert it at the beginning and not at the very end as an afterthought, because it's a notice issue. And then second of all, if you're going to bring that kind of a challenge, you got to give us something, a photograph of what the facts are on the ground, because you can deal with, at every single zoning hearing, we would be dealing with objections saying, oh, the sign was non-conforming and nobody's got a picture of it, and how do we sort through any of that? I think, what was it, the guy was, the last time who was gonna have the Jamaican, yeah. Those people came and they had a picture of it and showed that there was like, what was it, a smoker or something like that? That was parked in front of the sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
So, there's no, there's no argument that can be made about that. Okay.
Like today, you have the guy that wants you to apologize for someone else's mistake.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean that.
Yes, yes.
Sorry. Let's keep going.
Okay. Oh yeah, for the last one, for the Gulf Street, I think everyone saw that the concern was as far as, eliminating any banquet hall type uses. Do we want to write that in there somehow?
I would think so. Especially since there was a representation that was not what they were interested in doing. So
Yeah.
I would think it's
And I
not
do think
unreasonable.
The hours, if we put the hours as a condition of approval,
Yeah.
would eliminate those kinds of problems.
No, for the most part, but
He said they may want to have fundraisers.
Right.
yeah, that's the one thing. That's right, because he said that they didn't know what the hour, yeah, he actually asked us not to do that, because he said he didn't know what the hours of the, they wanted to have community association meetings there, or if they wanted to have any sort of like fundraiser type of events.
I would just say no rental to third parties. No rental to third parties, no functions other than communities rec functions, except for community association fundraisers, just to be specific.
Okay. Works for me.
What if the owner wants to use it that way? As
Well,
opposed to renting it to other people? No, I mean, what if that's
correct.
the intent?
What if he wants
right.
to do it?
Right.
Well, we could
So-
also write in the
Just prohibit that use
banquet hall type
completely.
thing. So, you know, no, what are they, no tickets at the door, no. I know that there's like 3 different,
No private club,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Right.
Well, we can,
Yeah, you can.
you get what we're
we'll
looking
figure out the wording.
for. Okay. Alrighty. Ready? All right, 2014-184, 1202 West Pratt Street is withdrawn. 2014-427, 305 East 25th Street is postponed. 2014-524, 3400 Chestnut Avenue. I am a yes with conditions, with the conditions stated by the planning department.
Yes.
Yes.
2014-538, rear of 2213 through 15 East Pratt Street was postponed. 2014-542, 1026 Olive Street. Oh, that's right, we're deferring until receipt of agreement between the applicant and the community association. 2014-543, 919 West Berry Street and 758 Iceland Street is postponed. 2014-544, 3311 Toon Street was a no-show. We'll follow up on that. 2014-545, 737 Carroll Street was postponed. 2014-546, 7211 Park Heights Avenue was by consent, subject to conditions stated by the planning department. 2014-547, 310 East Fort Avenue was by consent. 2014-548, 1203 Durst Street is being reposted. 2014-549, 1119 Bayard Street. I'm a yes, as revised to 15 children daycare, and with the condition that that the applicant pursue a passenger loading zone.
I'm a no.
I'm a no.
Okay.
Agree with Mr. Chairman.
Okay. 2014-551, 3446 Chestnut Avenue is postponed. 2014-552, 4621 Mary Avenue. I am a yes, with the conditions of the construction of a 6-foot-high stockade-type fencing on the, geez, which side of the property is that? I guess-
Interior side yard.
Thank you. That the applicant pursues location of a passenger loading zone, and if one is obtained, then the applicant will utilize a valet service such that at least one staff member will be meeting each child in the loading zone and escorting them into the premises and directing the parent or guardian to then clear the loading zone, and also the construction of additional parking facilities in the rear of the property to bring the total on-site parking to 5 spaces. And then also, were we contemplating giving her the full 40, or do we want to reduce that in some way?
We all looked at Mike.
Okay.
He's
All right.
the one who usually wants to reduce.
Okay.
How many are there now?
Yes.
Right.
The
God.
hours, did you ask how many children are there now? She operates a home daycare, so it's 8.
8, okay. So do we want to, considering all the congestion,
That's the reason why I was thinking maybe
complaints?
bring it up to 30.
Yeah, I was about to say 40 is probably a bit much for starters.
Let's,
I would even say
If they
25.
have in the past, we've
Mhm.
reduced it, they come back in a year or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you do.
I say
I
30,
would throw
you say
25 out there.
Choices are 30 or 25, or some other number.
Or throw out another number.
I'm okay with the request.
Okay.
Okay.
You too.
I would know.
Okay, so then it's you.
Yes, actually, I would say whatever, is approved by the state, based on footage.
Yeah, and my thought was that because of the concern over how the increase will impact the community, that maybe we want to start it off slow and such, like, what's the other one? Was it Fairwood?
Right.
When
Where it's
we had
remote.
initially approved that one, we'd approved her at a low number first, I think it was 20, and she came back a year later, got it to 30, and now she's back 3 years later. She needs 55 because she's got a 30-child waiting list, and when we initially approved it, the community was opposed. We put the upper level restriction on it to see how things went, and now it's at a point where everyone sees, yeah, it really does work, and they support it. Otherwise, yes, I would be with you that she just simply do whatever the state says. Although I think she said that the state will probably approve her for less. Because she did all the measurements herself. She hasn't.
That's the social policy, but there was a credible amount of opposition with respect to, legitimate opposition with respect to the parking issues.
Sure.
So I would be fine to stagger the growth as we've done in the past.
Okay, what do you want to say? She's at 25, I'm at 30.
Going from 8, I'd say 25.
Okay. And Marty?
If those are my two choices, I would say 30.
That's 27 and a half.
I'll flex that to 30 if we can get through.
Okay, all right, we'll say 30. All right, and limit to only 30 children. Agreed?
Yes.
Sure.
And then,
No.
he's a no. 2014-553, 1500 Whetstone Way is by consent with conditions stated by the Planning Department. 2014-554, 5925 Fairwood Avenue. I'm a yes with conditions stated by the Planning Department.
Yes.
Yes.
2014-555. I am a yes. First of all, with the elimination of the body work.
Body work,
And capacity to, with the condition that has capacity to be determined by the fire department. And how do we do it? I guess the restrictions on the no banquet hall, dance hall type uses. Agreed?
Yes.
Yes.
And 2014-556, 306 South Exeter Street was by consent. 2014-557, 1625 Thames Street was postponed. 2014-558, 624 Dennison Street was by consent. 2014-559, 4212 Groveland Avenue was by consent. 2014-560, 3305 Mueller Street was by consent. And 2014-564, 1100 through 34 East Belvedere Avenue was by consent. Okay.